OEM Commissioner Joe Bruno, Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty, Fire Commissioner Sal Casano, New York City Transit President Carmen Bianco, and DOT Commissioner Polly Trottenberg. We're going to give you a substantial briefing on the weather situation, and we're going to take questions on that topic only. So telling you up front, this will be the only topic for this briefing. So we're facing the second of three storms that we will face this week. This one, overnight into this morning, particularly nasty storm. We knew that its timing would make for a challenging rush hour. Combination of snow and freezing rain, ice has made driving slow. And we obviously saw the timing in advance and were able to have an early response to it. But we knew under any condition there would be a challenging rush hour this morning. The good news is we got ahead of it. All of the agencies involved, again, there's a lot more coordination happening here. I want to welcome Chief Joe Fox, NYPD. A lot of coordination happening between the agencies on a higher level, a lot more sharing of information and resources, and a lot more planning together going on that's allowing us a quicker and earlier response. And sanitation in particular was out. Could we get that radio off, please? Sanitation was out in very large numbers overnight, strong early response, and that's part of why, in particular, a lot of our primary roads are in good shape right now. We are emphasizing today, all New Yorkers, it is a very icy situation out there, both on the sidewalks and on the streets. If you don't need to go out, you should not go out. If you don't need to drive, you should not drive. If you can use mass transit, you should use mass transit. It is slow going out there. It is slippery. And if you have to go out, please leave extra time. We don't want people trying to rush in this weather, both for their own safety and the safety of others. We want people to leave lots of time. People trying to rush in these conditions, unfortunately, that will lead to accidents. So this afternoon, we know this will continue now for the next few hours. We want people to really take it slow, be very cautious. The driving dynamics, again, the ideal is for people not to go out in your cars. If you do go out, take it slow, but also leave extra space between you and the cars around you. Don't forget the fact that you'll see some cars stopping short because of the ice, and so we want people to be very cautious, leave that extra space. At this point, we've seen a pattern here over the last few weeks of these snow storms and these other precipitation, and we know we're expecting another major event this weekend. So I think it's time to think for a moment about what the response of New Yorkers has been to this set of crises. I have to say first that the city agencies have responded, I think, with great energy and great effectiveness. I want to thank all the leaders here today. I want to thank the very hard-working women and men of the New York City public service who have gone out there and faced storm after storm. A lot of folks are tired, but they go out there and they do their job well despite that. But let me say something about everyday New Yorkers and what all of us have grappled with in these last few weeks. And let's face it, this is a city that's no stranger to adversity. We are tough by nature. We are able to handle things that maybe other places would find overwhelming. But as New Yorkers, we don't give in the face of challenges. And in the final analysis, people have taken this series of storms in stride in the scheme of things. People have been, I think, very quick to deal with the situation. And that's part of what makes this city so great, that people know how to handle anything that's thrown at them. I want to quote one of my predecessors who said something about this city that I think epitomizes what a lot of us feel. Mayor Koch said toward the end of his life, he said, at age 88, I wake up every morning and say to myself, well, I'm still in New York, thank you, God. And so even when I have woken up in the morning lately and known that a snow shovel was waiting for me, I still felt that great gratitude that I was a New Yorker and I knew we would get through, and I knew we would all work together to get through the crisis. Nobody likes days like today, but nobody handles days like today better than New Yorkers. So we're going to keep taking the good and the bad and keep moving forward together. And part of what is making that possible is that these agencies are working on such a high level to address the challenges. I again like to really thank our Deputy Mayor, our first Deputy Mayor, Tony Shores, who has been very, very aggressive about getting the agencies to where we need them to be and coordinated the way we need them to be for each of these events. On to this storm. OEM's Emergency Operations Center was activated at 9 p.m. last night, with the pertinent agencies brought together to coordinate the response. A winter storm warning has been in effect since midnight, will continue until 6 p.m. today. We've had roughly 4 inches of snow through the overnight, and then the precipitation started to change depending on which neighborhood you were in, either to sleet or freezing rain. This afternoon, we will see additional scattered freezing rain, in some cases snow flurries, in some cases rain. We're looking at very icy road conditions. Obviously, with this amount of water around and then the likelihood of colder temperatures later, we can expect very icy conditions. Thank God, compared to some of the previous storms, it's a little warmer. And again, the salt can be a little more effective in that situation, but still we expect this ongoing precipitation and very icy road conditions. The fact is that given that it will take a while for the precipitation to end, and given that sanitation has a lot of work to do, we again emphasize if people stay off the streets, it allows sanitation to do their job and keep clearing the streets. We've had some transit delays and service adjustments because of the weather. You'll hear in a little bit from Carmen Bianco of the Transit Authority, but right now the vast majority of service is moving steadily. Even if there's been delays, it's moving steadily. Anyone who wants to know for sure what's happening with their subway or bus line can go to mta.info before heading out. Again, please leave extra time for travel if you're using mass transit. Now, want to go over some of what we've thrown into action overnight to prepare for the situation. 450 salt spreaders were dispatched as soon as the snow began. And again, they had the opportunity to do their work without a lot of traffic in the way this time. Plows on 1,700 vehicles, 12-hour shifts again, which began at 7 p.m. last night, 2,300 workers per shift. As previously, departments of parks, DEP, transportation, all supplementing snow removal equipment from sanitation with their own equipment. Alternate side parking canceled today, will be canceled again tomorrow. Please get that word out. Folks have their car in a place that would have had to be moved. They can leave it where it is. That will make everyone's life a little easier. Alternate side parking canceled today and tomorrow. And you know my next sentence, parking meters remain in effect. I'm going to be saying this in my sleep soon. Garbage and recycling collections have been, of course, canceled today. We will hope tomorrow to begin those again in earnest. We know that some garbage and recycling is backed up. Obviously, the snow response comes first, but the plan right now is to begin garbage and recycling collections again tomorrow. There will still be some other cleanup activities going on simultaneously. Now, to property owners, I want to remind property owners it's your obligation, it is your legal obligation to clear your sidewalks. This is very, very important. Think about our seniors, think about our kids. They need those sidewalks cleared. People have to get out there and shovel within 4 hours of the snow. Want to emphasize from my own shoveling experience this morning, it's very heavy snow, unusually heavy snow, because there's a lot of water in it. And so if you have any physical limitations, this is a day to either let someone else do the shoveling or shovel very, very carefully, because it's going to take some extra effort to deal with this snow. And if you have a hydrant in front of your property, please help us and please help the FDNY by shoveling that out in particular. In terms of our schools, just a couple of updates. Field trips canceled today. Field trips canceled, but after school and PSAL activities are continuing as scheduled. So after school and PSAL continuing as scheduled. We made the decision yesterday to keep school open. I've talked about this before. I am a public school parent. I see these decisions through the eyes of parents. And parents are thinking about a lot of different things when it comes to these decisions. Obviously, first and foremost, the safety of our kids. Parents want to make sure their kids' education is continuing as uninterrupted as possible. A lot of parents want to make sure that their kids don't have disruption in the lessons. They're learning whenever possible. A lot of parents have very difficult schedules and rely on the consistency in the school schedule for a good and safe place for their kids to be. So these are tough dynamics that parents are always balancing. It's our obligation, and Carmen Farina and I talk about this quite a bit. It's our obligation to always look at the fact that legally we're supposed to make sure there's a certain number of school days, and as an educator, no one cares more than Carmen about making sure kids get as many days in, as much continuity as possible. The question always is, can we do it safely and effectively? We knew today there would be some delays with kids getting to school, but we knew they would get there. We knew there would be some challenges in operating the schools, but we knew we could operate them well and safely. So we made the decision to go ahead with school. I know you're going to hear from some parents in each case, by the way. You're going to hear some parents when we keep school open who say that they're not comfortable sending their kids, and that's their choice. We're going to hear in other cases when we close school that parents feel let down, that the school isn't there for their kids, or that's dislocated their arrangements and their schedule. We have to balance all of that, but the most fundamental question is, can we do it safely? Can we do it effectively? And we decided yesterday we could do that today. Now, we also know that we are in the midst of a series of storms, so we have to look at this in perspective with the other storms. We felt this one, that we would have a smooth enough situation today. Obviously, another major storm facing us this weekend could go into Monday. As we get information about that, we're going to update you. That will be its own decision. Set of decisions will be brought up by that storm of how we're going to make choices about the response and about school. A couple other updates. Senior centers closed today. Senior centers are closed. Homeless services, once again, doubling its outreach efforts for the street homeless. As I've said many times, any normal snow increase, any request for things like heating assistance, 311. In the case of true emergencies, life-threatening situations, 911 is the place to turn. And I always say it, and I mean it, people need to look out for each other. It's a part, again, of what makes New Yorkers New Yorkers. We're tough, we're resilient, we actually care about each other a lot more than the world believes about us, and we have a sense of neighborhood, we have a sense of community. And so I ask all New Yorkers, look out for your fellow New Yorkers. If there's someone in your building, someone on your block who's a senior or disabled or might need some special help, go knock on the door, give them a call, see if you can help them in this difficult moment. Another update, and this is not an update I've given you before, because it indicates what the strain of all these situations has done to our normal operations, in this case, our blood donations. We've had this string of storms. A lot of the blood donations that normally come in have not happened. And so we have a very serious situation on our hands where we need blood donations, and we need them quickly. So if you are able to donate blood, this is the time to do it. I want to emphasize that would be very helpful to your fellow New Yorkers. If you're in a position to donate blood, please do so as quickly as possible. If you're able to donate blood, you can call 800-933-2566, again, 800-933-2566, or visit nybloodcenter.org, nybloodcenter.org. Quick note of Spanish, and then I'd like to call up Carmen Bianco of Transit. En muchas áreas pueden ser difícil conducir vehículos por la combinación de nieve y hielo. Por favor, usen el transporte colectivo. A nadie le gustan los días como hoy, pero nadie se las arregla mejor en días como hoy que los neoyorquinos. With that, I'd like to bring up Carmen Bianco, the president of New York City Transit. There you are.
Good afternoon. Let me start with the preparation that we went into for the storm. Last night, we began preparations with putting the entire fleet. As the fleet was put to bed last night, we stored it underground and we didn't take the chance to put it in the yards, realizing that would help us start up service this morning. Service this morning went in without a problem. We had a full complement of employees on board. We were able to get the trains out. Obviously, starting up the express service takes some time in certain parts of the city because those tracks are occupied. But it went in pretty well. We were seeing, as I predicted, some delays in certain areas. When you have the type of weather that we experienced through the night, that type of ice buildup, you know you're going to have some situations with your signal system, and we did. We had situations where we had some icing problems, and it's a matter of having our gifted employees go out there and make the necessary repairs and get things moving. We have, out of the 468 stations, about 70% at this point have been cleaned, at least partially. What that means is they've had their first pass. We'll go back and dress them again. We have a small percentage that are still going to require some work, but we have about 1,000 employees out there today doing that job. Earlier this morning, just to go back on a little bit about the signal system, earlier this morning on the 7th Avenue line, we actually had a signal problem where we had a dark signal. Train reported it, and as we were sending the troops out there to troubleshoot, we found out that the problem started to migrate. It actually took the 7 line out from about 42nd Street up to 125th Street. And it was exactly what I was saying earlier. It was a grounded cable. It takes some time in those situations, and this took about almost 90 minutes. First and foremost is making sure any train out there on the line is brought into a station, to a place of safety, that we're accommodating our customers. That's always number one for us. Following that, we want to make sure that we begin the troubleshooting process, really trying to understand how do you isolate where that problem was. We found it. We were able to isolate it. We were able to get around it. We will have to go back and make repairs later, but for now, we were able to get the system back up and running. On the subway side, I suggest that we will continue to see sporadic problems throughout the day as long as we're encountering this weather. On the bus side, we have had a good morning. The entire fleet is chained. Those chains have been on the bus since last weekend with the earlier storm. We're starting to lose some of them. As a matter of fact, they start to break after some period of time, so we're replenishing them as they do break. But the bus fleet performing well. We haven't had very many, just a handful of buses stuck in the city. And when I say stuck, momentarily, nothing of any major consequence. We are running about 85 to 90% of the service. And again, I think that you can expect, due to the weather conditions, that we will continue to see some delays on the system. I suggest, as the mayor's indicated, everyone should, before you start your travel, please go to mta.info and check the current status on both the train and the bus side. And we'll get through this. But I just want to leave by saying I'm very proud of the team of 46,000 people that work at New York City Transit. They've done a remarkable job through this first 5 weeks of winter. Thank you. No. I'm sorry. I said the 7th Avenue line. That problem we had was on the 7th Avenue line.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I want to commending the men and women of the MTA. It has been definitely a series of challenges, but they've risen to the occasion, and very, very much appreciate the report you've given here. With that, we welcome your questions on this topic. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you've been mayor for 5 weeks or so. Snow is always a problem for mayors at the beginning of their administration, but this has got to have set some kind of a record. How do you stay on top of it with new people in places, not maybe knowing all the systems? How do you manage what you've managed?
Well, I think everyone's done a hell of a job, and I give a lot of credit to our first deputy mayor, Tony Shorus, for bringing them together. And look, I said from the beginning we were going to bring together a team that was very experienced, shared the values that I want to bring to our approach to city government, but that was very experienced and effective. I think we've seen that play out here. Tony has managed like the old hand he is, dealt with many crises before, and he's kept things flowing very nicely. A lot of the folks in the different agencies I've worked with for many, many years, so the personal relationships, the communication is already there. But I think the bottom line is I take a very hands-on attitude, and I think all of the leaders of this administration take a very hands-on attitude, and we're constantly looking for how we can learn and improve in each situation. You're seeing that play out this week. I think the response in each and every instance keeps improving. And as I said about the people in New York City, we're used to having a lot thrown at us, and we know how to handle it. And certainly these professionals know how to handle it, and the people who work in their agencies know how to handle it. We're seeing a great response today. Yes, Jen.
Mayor Blasio, salt shortage?
Say again?
Governor Cuomo had something to say about a salt shortage downstate. Do you know anything about this?
I don't know about the rest of the state. I know in terms of New York City, we have the resources for this storm. We have the resources for the next storm as it's projected. Again, National Weather Service has not given us, nor would we expect this far out, a firm indication of what to expect. We believe things will be concentrated on Sunday and Monday. But we're planning for 2 days of major storm, and we have the salt reserve necessary for that. Rich?
Mr. Mayor, speaking of hands-on, you have been shoveling every
That is hands-on, Rich.
before coming in here. Does this increase the temptation to move to the Gracie Mansion?
As I've said, this current house we bought 14 years ago, and I've been shoveling it out every winter, so it's nothing new for me. I went to the gym this morning before shoveling, thinking I would warm up for shoveling. I want to advise people that going to the gym before shoveling is not always a good idea, because this was much heavier snow than I expected. But now, look, I love my house. I love my neighborhood. We've made the decision to go to Gracie, but it's going to take time to put that move together. So when we get there, we get there.
Mr. Mayor, you seem to be giving a pep talk to New Yorkers today. You quoted Ed Koch. You said, we're tough, we can take it. Do you think that New Yorkers need this kind of a pep talk, given the fact that this is the fourth storm in 36 days, and you've got another storm coming up, and you're trying to tell people we can deal with this no matter what?
I'm just reminding people of what we know already, who we are. We can handle this, and we've been handling it. And I think sometimes it is good to stop for a moment and say, hey, wait a minute, we've had things thrown at us. We, by the way, with all due respect to some other parts of our country, some places get paralyzed when they get 2 inches of snow. We just keep going. And so I think the response has been exemplary. And I think people need to realize there's more coming, and we're going to be able to handle it. So it's just a reminder that as New Yorkers, we're tough enough to handle it. Yes?
You mentioned there's a blood shortage.
I'll come to this side in a second. I'm sorry, I've been leaning right here.
You mentioned a blood shortage in the city.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to donate blood?
Yes, I do.
When are you going to?
We're still working out the details, but I will. Yes.
Will you be shoveling your own snow when you move to Gracie Mansion?
I think there is already an established protocol for shoveling at Gracie Mansion, so I'll leave that pleasure behind.
When it comes to school closures, have you given any thought to the idea? A lot of outer borough parents say that it should be left up to either the borough or the local community school district, whether their local community schools should be closed, given different conditions from one borough to another, different public transit options.
I'm going to give my opening response and introduce the school's chancellor. I find that hard to conceptualize. I think it's one system, and I think it's very hard to start making those different decisions. I've heard the proposal before. I think it's a well-intentioned proposal, but I think it's very difficult to implement. But let's have the chancellor speak to it.
First of all, I'd be worried that we'd be having, the high school kids in one borough and the elementary schools in another borough and the middle schools in the third borough. So I think you're really going to have a lot of confusion. Just so you know, today we have over 60% attendance as of an hour ago, so I'm assuming that's even going to be higher. And parents, and parents are going to make choices. So I think we did the right thing for many, many reasons. In almost close to 50 years in education, the schools have closed less than 10 times. So we do closing very carefully. The other thing I have to say that I'm very much worried about, what about the kids for whom the school is a safe haven? Many of our kids would not have had a hot lunch today if the schools hadn't been open. So I think we need to keep that in mind, and I think for parents who make the decision to stay home with their kids, it's great. But as of right now, no big businesses in New York City closed, so I'm assuming all parents who worked had to go to work. So I don't think making a decision that's not citywide makes sense, because the decision parents have not to send their kids to school somewhere is their decision.
Two parts. First, when you speak to, particularly with the icy roads, slow going out there, if you could talk the number of 911 calls and what kind of response times you're looking at. And then secondly, do you have any updates on overtime numbers with any of the sort of sanitation workers throughout this string?
Again, I said I'll do the budget, then let me let Joe and Sal speak to the emergency response. At this moment, there's, as I said the other day, a whole season predicted in the budget. Now, we didn't have a lot of difficult weather in November and December. We've had a big concentration in January into the beginning of February. So we're within the parameters of our budget. But I will state the obvious. This is something that has to be addressed. So, God forbid the costs go up. We have to address it. We have to find a way to handle it because we owe the public that the roads will be addressed right away and that things will be made safe as quickly as possible. So right now the budgetary situation is something we can handle, but either way we're going to make decisions based on the service we have to provide first. Let me bring up Sal, Joe, who wants to speak too.
The way we make up for the slowing responses to just put extra ambulances on. We had 25 extra ambulances on the overnight tour. We have 25 extra ambulances on now. We know it's going to be slow going, but with the extra staffing, it does make up for the road conditions. The call volume happens to be reasonably stable right now. It didn't go up overnight. It's not going up during the day. So we're holding our own, and the call volume is up very slightly. Response time's a little bit, but again, we made up for that with the extra units we've put on. So we're holding our own right now.
Please.
Our call volume is about the same as well, maybe up 1%, nothing significant. And as the Chancellor mentioned, major businesses being open, obviously so too are up. Our officers all made it to work, and now precinct commanders and borough commanders, take great efforts at watching the response time and the responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. This question is for Commissioner Doherty. What did you learn from the Upper East Side?
What did you learn in school today?
And what you've implemented, can you give us a couple examples? And the second question for Mr. Bianco, what caused the grounded cable on the 1, 2, and 3?
I think when you look back on any storm, and I've been through many of them over the years, a lot of it is timing. Do you get a good forecast when you start off with? The Upper East Side issue came after a holiday. We had planned for a collection. We were set up for collection, which is a different allocation of personnel around the city. That took some time. We were concerned about our collection issues at the time. So at different times, you run into different problems. I think this storm in particular, we had a lot better notice on it. We knew what we were expecting. We had the people in the right place, and it didn't hit us at the rush hour, although I was concerned about this morning's rush hour. We had a good start on it with our plows and spreaders out last night. We basically kept most of them on standby ready, thinking it might hit as early as 11 o'clock last night. So each storm is going to be a little different, and you always hope that you made the decision early on is the correct one and get everybody in place, and sometimes you just don't have enough time to do that.
In terms of the 7th Avenue line this morning, what we do in that situation, first and foremost, it's about our customers and it's about ensuring that we get them to a point of safety. So that's number one. Number two is to begin to isolate where the problem is, and we were able to determine the general vicinity of the problem, and with that we were able to figure out a way to get around the problem. As I speak now, there are folks out there trying to troubleshoot why. The why question hasn't been answered yet. So we wanted to make sure we get service back up, that it was safe, that it was reliable, and now we'll go back and figure out why that wire or why that cable was grounded.
Okay. Yes.
I'm a little confused about the salt situation. Mm-hmm. Governor Cuomo referred to having delivered emergency tons of salt to New York City, and you're saying that the city has enough. So do you know?
Let me turn to the first deputy mayor. Again, what I'm trying to say is we have known for a few days now that there was going to be, I think when I talked to you a day or two ago, I said we expected 3 storms in the week. We've been working on that assumption. We've been making sure our supply was strong, and we've been talking to different partners to make sure that's the case. So I'm saying at this moment we feel very good about our supply given the storm coming up. Anything to add?
We do, as the mayor said, have plenty of salt for this storm and for the next storm, but we're always trying to think ahead, and we want to make sure we always keep our inventory stocks high. We have a regular process, John does, and through DCAS of getting salt on a daily basis. But given that it's been a heavy winter and haven't been too lucky so far on this, it seemed prudent to try and make sure we got salt from everywhere we could. State had extra salt made available. We took advantage of it. We were very grateful to them, and we're out looking around all the time to make sure our salt supplies are as high as they can be. We don't want to get caught behind the curve.
Let me just. Okay.
Do you know how much salt the state directed?
I think it was about a couple of thousand tons.
Let me just add that, one of the things I said, Tony loves his job so much, I like to give him extra work to do. And so in these challenging situations, Tony does a lot of liaison with the state. He does a lot of liaison with the Port Authority. And that's also by virtue of the experience that he's had in the past working with all levels of government. So we regularly are talking with our partners in government about ways we can help each other. So we're very grateful to the state for being able to come up with some additional help right now. But the bottom line is, through all of these efforts, we're in a good place looking forward to the storm this weekend. Marcia.
Mayor, I was wondering, there have been predictions that there's going to be ice on trees and things like that. I'm wondering if you're concerned about power outages. I've noticed some lights along the West Side Highway that have already started to go out. I wonder if, in the outer boroughs where there are trees, if there's a concern the trees could come down and power outages.
People of Manhattan would argue there are trees in Manhattan, too. But I'm going to let Joe Bruno speak to that. Tree grows in Manhattan.
Well, with ice, and we had about 0.25 inch of ice. It was predicted it might be a little bit higher, so that's good. 0.25, quarter inch. There have been some outages, but not dramatic and not widespread. There have been outages here and there, and a lot of those outages really relate to salt and manholes at times, so we've had some of that. Overall, we are concerned about ice on branches. One good thing is the Parks Department has done some good work in the past in pruning trees in parks and ensuring that branches that have to come down. We have not had, and the EOC has been operational now since 9 o'clock. We have all of these agencies and others there. We are very organized in New York City the way we deal with emergencies. We go to the EOC, we bring in the agencies, we look at every issue that comes up. We look at trees down, limbs down, we're looking at lines down for power, and we're assessing. We have tow trucks available for stuck vehicles. So we've looked at all that, and what we don't see is anything widespread. We see one off, two off. There are a lot of people without power. They're working it. We're on top of Con Ed. They sit in there with us. We look at every job they have to make sure that they conclude it to our satisfaction, and we go to the next job. So overall, it is a concern, without a doubt. Parks Department put on additional forestry crews all overnight with us, and they're still with us. So if we see a problem, we'll take care of it. We haven't seen many limbs down. We have seen some power outages, but not necessarily related to trees taking them down. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. Bobby.
Mr. Mayor, we had complaints from some homeowners that said their attempts to clear the sidewalks were complicated a little bit by the plows kicking up snow and ice onto their sidewalks. Is that a concern you've heard? Any advice for homeowners in that situation?
It's not a complaint I've heard. Doesn't surprise me that might happen sometimes, but it's not a complaint I've heard. I don't know if looking to John or Joe, I don't think it's something we've been hearing a lot lately, but please.
This is not new. I mean, especially when you got a lot of soft snow out there. There's a lot of slush out there. The plows are moving along. They're trying to make time. That'll kick over further sometimes. We do tell them in every storm, don't put it up on a sidewalk. And in most cases, it doesn't go. I mean, in some areas, that sidewalk is so close to the street, there's no grassy area or space between it. They will roll some snow onto the street trying to make it passable. So you're trying to weigh that. But very little of that. We do get some complaints, but not that much. It's rare, actually.
Okay, last question, Rich.
Mr. Mayor, so are you invigorated by this winter weather, or are you sick and tired of it? And what are you hearing from other people?
My morning workout was invigorating, Rich. And I should see the heavy snow as the alternative to the weight machines at the Y. So, look, the team is doing a great job. And they're getting better all the time. That is invigorating. People are working together, really beautifully. There's a lot of constant dialogue about how to improve our efforts, a lot of adjustments being made. It's a very dynamic situation. So it's invigorating to work with great professionals, and it's invigorating to see our efforts get better each and every time. And we're ready for this weekend. Thanks, everyone.